Good morning, and welcome to Talk of the Town on 99.7, 1450 WHTC, and WHTC.com.
And we welcome you to Talk of the Town for this Friday, November the 13th. I'm Gary Stevens. We'll be joined in about an hour by Jared Fritzma, sitting in for Patty Vandenberg. What's new around Holland? Our 10:30 segment, Jim Story, the chairman of the Allegan County Board of Commissioners, will be joining us for the monthly update of what's going on at Dumont Lake. We'll have some open line time after the 10 and 11 o'clock news. But on the second Friday of the month, we devote our first half hour to our Ask the Attorney segment, your opportunity to speak to one of our local attorneys, mostly about probate, but other legal items. Keep in mind that if you have a specific issue, it's best to talk with your own legal counsel. And for the most part, these men that we chat with on a monthly basis do not deal with criminal law. That's an entirely different animal, shall we say. When the month is an even-numbered month, in February, April, June, August, and October, as well as December, we are chatting with Ken Pazicki of Ken Pazicki Law. When it's an odd-numbered month, as it is right now, the month of November is number 11. We are joined by Nathan Bocks of Central Park Law, who joins us from his law offices in downtown Holland. Nathan, good morning, and welcome back to Talk of the Town.
Hey, good morning, Gary. It's good to be here.
By the way, it's not because Nathan is odd that we put him in the odd numbered months.
I think that you said I'm odd, but that's not why. But I'll take that. That's not a problem. Hey, Gary, I want to, if I can, I want to bend the rules a little bit this morning because I was listening about an hour ago when you had Mayor Pro Tem Mike Trethewey on, and as I'm sure the listeners know, I have another job as well, that I'm the mayor of Holland. I just wanted to follow up on a couple of things that Mike said. Mike is the lion of city council. He's been there longer than anybody and knows this city as well as anybody does. But I texted him jokingly about his failure of memory this morning. The person that we brought in as a consultant on housing this year in collaboration with Housing Next is Ryan Kilpatrick. I want to make sure that we got Ryan's name out there for folks. He is essentially the housing guru in Western Michigan, if not across the state. He's also going to be helping the city in working with tax incentives. Our city finance director, Tim Fogley, is retiring at the end of the year, and one of Tim's specialties was dealing with tax incentives, and Ryan's going to be bringing that expertise in with us as well. So we've contracted with Housing Next to use Ryan's services in that position. Another thing I wanted to mention too, when we're talking about the civil discourse, Mike is exactly right. Mike has been the one who has been leading the way in regard to making sure that we as council act with decorum, both in the way that we interact with each other, the way that we interact with staff, and the way that we interact with the public. But I am behind him 100% on that. That is one of the top priorities of council this year. And I just want to make sure that everybody was clear that Mike is definitely the one who has been leading the way on that, but we're behind him all the way on it. We think it's a great idea.
I will add two things. And well, first of all, we will say, even though Nathan is the mayor of the city of Holland, you can call and chat with him, but we want to keep this on the attorney side because that's the purpose of what he's with us today.
I just wanted to take a couple of minutes at the beginning to say that and then put the mayor thing aside, and then we'll talk about the lawyer
But there's
stuff.
A couple of other mayor things I need to touch with you on. And
sure.
By the way, if you want to chat with us, 395-1450, 395-1450, area code 616 if you're listening through our stream at WHTC.com away from our listening area. First, I brought up the housing situation because a week ago we had Mike Gorehouse of the Community Foundation of the Holland Zeeland area, and he had an update as they're halfway through the Housing Next program in terms of funding it. So I figured that it was a good time to bring up that subject because indeed low-income housing is a very important subject, and it shouldn't be pushed to the background because of the COVID-19 or the election stories, which have basically taken all the energy and all the air out of the room.
Exactly. You're exactly right. That is still an important front burner issue for us at the city.
The other thing, and I will mention this, and I sort of said it in jest a little bit, but maybe it might not be a bad idea. By the way, on our Zoom connection, and we will put a link to the video in a little bit today on our webpage at WHTC.com. The only orange that Nathan Bocks is wearing is his tie.
I got a watch band too.
But I think if anything that Nathan Bocks might leave as a legacy for the city of Holland, and this weekend is appropriate because the Masters is being played in Augusta, Georgia, and of course the winner gets a green jacket. But maybe, and it would have to be, assortment of sizes, but maybe one of the prerequisites for a mayor of city of Holland moving forward after Nathan and moving forward, they gotta have an orange blazer in the wardrobe.
I heard that you had a conversation with Peg about that jacket. And it's for folks who don't know, I have a bright orange sport coat that I started wearing when I was the chair of the Tulip Time board. I love that jacket. I tried to get more, but it actually came from the clearance rack at Kohl's, and I spent all of $9 on it. And if I had the opportunity to buy every size available, I would have, but that was the only one left. So, but I'm happy to leave it behind in either the mayor's office or at the Tulip Time office if either one of them want to have it when I decide to hang up my jacket for service to the community. But I'm hoping that's a long way off yet.
But the thing is, though, now that particular jacket might eventually end up in the Holland Museum. You never know. But the other thing is maybe I know that City Hall listens to this particular show. Maybe there should be an allocation, maybe in next year's budget that'll be drawn up by Keith Van Beek to find a way to have a full wardrobe of orange blazers for the mayor and maybe for city council as well to make it a distinctive point of the Holland City Council.
I'll let council members decide how they want to dress themselves. I'm guessing many of them are not that excited about wearing the mayor's orange all of the time.
That's all right, but we're just having a little fun with it. But
sure.
Whoever becomes mayor, instead of winning the green jacket at the Masters, they win the orange jacket as mayor of the city of Holland. Complete with complete ceremony. That's and, right. Where's Jim Nance to interview the guy afterwards or the lady afterwards? Yeah, you never know.
What's the old adage? Second place is one orange jacket and first place is two orange jackets. The other way around.
I think it's the other way around.
The other way around. Yes. I screwed up my own joke.
Enough about that. Let us move forward and talk legally and talk about probate issues for the most part. Nathan is also involved in some business law, and we've addressed some things with him in our past conversations, dealing with incorporation, dealing with bankruptcy, dealing with settlement of assets in a business a situation. So if you got a question, and again, Nathan really can't help you on a particular individual basis, but he can draw some general legal aspects of it. You can call Nathan at 395-1450, 395-1450. Keep in mind, that's another thing we've talked to Nathan about, as well as with Ken Pizicki of Ken Pizicki Law, is that these gentlemen can be advisors, but they are not financial advisors. So
exactly.
Keep that, they don't deal with stuff that Jack Godfrey and Carrie Cooley from Cooley Godfrey and some of our other fine economic minds in our area can do, but they can certainly help, because this is our last chance we can chat on this before the end of the year. What legal things, what paperwork things need to be done between now over the next 6 weeks before the end of the year? Are there certain things that people need to keep in mind just to make sure that after January 1st, when, especially during tax time, they don't start saying, oh boy, I should have done something back in November and December. Am I stretching for stuff, or are there some things that people need to know? Maybe some.
No, there are. Yeah, we definitely, estate planning attorneys, because I'm at both on the planning end in regard to estates, and then I'm also on what I call the administration end, so the before and the after. And so there's a lot of planning that tends to be done, especially this time of year, for folks in regard to gifting. And 2020 has been an interesting year, to say the least, for most of us. There are folks that are out there that have been doing some gifting, say, to children or other family members over the course of this year, or that they're looking at this year and saying, we still want to make sure that we're getting as much out of the year as we can. And the general rule of thumb with the IRS is that any person can give any other person or any number of people that they want to up to $15,000 a year in assets in any calendar year. And a lot of people have either that $15,000 number, or the old number was $10,000. And so a lot of people still carry that number around, but it is 15. And anybody can give as many other people $15,000 a year as they want to. And one of the things that I found that people don't understand about that is the ability to multiply those gifts. So one parent can give each one of their children, if they've got 4 kids, they can give up to $60,000 to those 4 kids. If it's 2 parents, they can each give $15,000 to each one of those kids. So they give $30,000 from couple to child if they want to. And if those children are married, they can double that again, because each parent can give both the husband and the wife $15,000. So you could get from married parents to married children $60,000 transferred over. And what the IRS says is the IRS does not care about gifts between married people. So money can pass through a spouse to another spouse. And so we can multiply things pretty quickly. I have some clients who are doing some gifting at the end of the year, and we've been talking about those numbers, and they've been bouncing the $15,000 number in their head. And I said, well, no, if you're married and you want to give your married child something, we can get that up to $60,000. The other thing that people tend to forget about is it doesn't just have to be cash. It can be other assets. It can be real estate. I've got a project I'm working on right now with someone where they're going to be giving their children the family cottage over the course of the next year. And while they can't do it all in one calendar year because the cottage is worth too much, we're actually spreading it out over 2 calendar years. And they said, well, what's our deadline on that? And I said, well, we need to make sure the first step of that is done before December 31. But then we could do step 2 on January 1 if we wanted to. So the IRS doesn't say that these gifts have to be 365 days apart. They just have to be in separate calendar years. So we're often doing multi-stage gifts, first part in December and the second part in January. Now we'd have to wait until the following January to do a third step, but that does provide a whole lot of flexibility for folks in regard to gifting. And the other, and you mentioned it with Carrie Cooley and Jack Godfrey, you were exactly right. They are the financial planning folks, and I try to stay away from answering questions like that as much as possible. The other thing I always like to let clients know is I'm not an accountant either. So if you have specific tax questions, you're going to want to make sure that you're talking to your accountant. There are new and different rules in 2020, some that are related specifically to COVID, in regard to what you can do with distributions from IRAs or other retirement plans that you may only be able to take advantage of during 2020. So if you've had a difficult year financially, and a lot of folks have this year, there are some opportunities, especially with IRAs and 401ks. You could withdraw up to $100,000 out of that IRA or 401k. And if you're under 59 and a half, you don't have to get hit with the normal penalty that you would. And you also have the opportunity to repay that back into the IRA over the course of the next 3 years without any penalty that goes along with it either. Now, you'll lose potentially the time value of that money if it would have been earning interest over that time. But for a lot of folks, that's an opportunity, especially if they weren't working at the beginning of the year, or they're looking at some hardships coming up, because every indication I see is that the numbers are going back up again. That if they're looking at the end of the year going, things might get difficult at the end of the year, that's an opportunity for them. But they're going to want to talk to their own Carrie or Jack in regard to what makes the most sense for them. But there are opportunities this year that are not available potentially other years.
Speaking about Carrie Cooley and Jack Godfrey, the Money Matters program with Carrie and Jack will be tomorrow morning at 10 right here on 99.7 and 1450 WHTC. But we're chatting right now with attorney Nathan Bocks. It's Ask the Attorney segment, dealing with maybe you're representing a party in Michigan which has interests in another state and has had legal representation in another state. We'll talk first about them reaching out to you in this state, and maybe you reaching out to the attorneys for your client in another state, especially in a legal matter where they need some information from the Michigan side?
Certainly, and that does happen actually fairly frequently. It happens on the, I always say there are two sides of the law in my mind. There's the problem prevention side, and then there's the problem resolution side. I spend a whole lot of time on the problem prevention side and doing planning and wills and trusts and those types of things. And I'm only licensed in the state of Michigan, so I can only service clients in those areas who are in the state of Michigan. And so if somebody came to me who was an out-of-state resident and said, I'd like you to do my will or my trust, I'd have to say, no, I can't do that. But on the problem prevention side, it actually comes up fairly frequently. It's typically, when I'm dealing with it, it typically has to do with a real estate transaction or a client who lives here and owns real estate in another state that we need to deal with, or when a client has passed away and there were assets that were in another state. I get a lot of requests from attorneys from the Chicago area who are doing estate planning for clients who are Chicago residents who have a vacation home in this area, and helping them deal with that piece of real estate that happens to be located here. Different states have different rules. There are 50 different states. There are 49 of those 50 states are very similar. We're all based on the common law from England. Louisiana is a bit of an outlier. They are dealing more with code-based law from a French system rather than from an English system, and there are historical reasons for that. And the law, what's nice is the law overlaps quite a bit from state to state, but the devil's in the details. And you can get caught up in a problem pretty quickly if you extend yourself too far into another state. So I just had a conversation with a client yesterday whose parent died and the parent lives out of state, and they're trying to work out the arrangement and what's going to happen with dad's house in this other state. And I said, I can give you all kinds of advice on the types of things that I think that you should do and the kind of implementation that you need to do. But once it comes time to actually putting the paperwork together, you need to contact an attorney in that state. I can help you out with that. But the problem is, I don't have connections in every state, especially in small towns. And, in a small town in Oklahoma, I don't know any lawyers there, and I don't have any way to give a recommendation there. So what we start looking for, and as we did with this person, they said, oh, well, I grew up in the area. I still know some people. I have some friends from high school or people I know from church. And I said, those are the people that you want to ask. You want to get a recommendation from people that you know who've actually used an attorney in that area, because the old adage is true. A good lawyer knows the law. A great lawyer knows the judge. And if you know the local rules and you know how things work, and even if I can look up the law, but it can be implemented fairly differently, even from county to county. And so you want somebody who knows those local rules and local traditions and how things are supposed to work there to be able to help you on those interstate issues. It can also be fairly complicated. I have clients where we're dealing with multiple probates in multiple states at multiple times or at the same time. And it can get fairly complicated where timelines don't line up quite right. And it ends up typically taking a whole lot longer to get those things resolved, because we can be working on our Michigan timeline and be running up against a deadline, but the deadline in Florida hasn't passed for them to do the thing that we need to have happen on this end. And that can be very frustrating for clients, but we do our best to work well together. We attorneys talk with each other about these kinds of things. And it's helpful to have an attorney that's able to work and help you through and guide you through those kinds of issues from state to state. But one thing that you didn't mention that I think is really clear is it's always fairly clear which state's rules apply. There are very specific rules in regard to what state's law you look to in a specific issue. And when we're looking at litigation kinds of things, that's usually where the transaction occurred. In probate, it's where the real estate is located, because one state does not want another state telling them what to do with the land that's in their state. We are a republic, and each state wants to control the things that are happening within their own borders, especially their own real estate.
We have about a minute and a half, and I have a funny feeling this subject might take a little bit longer. But as you advise some of your business clients dealing with the liability stemming from COVID-19, is it really pretty much almost the same as it would be for any other illness type situation, or are we dealing with an entirely different animal here?
This is, and you're right. It's a whole lot longer than a minute and a half question. And this is something that's worked across businesses, across nonprofits, and even across local governments, is trying to figure out over the course of the last month how to deal with entirely new situations. The rules that we follow and the traditions that we have date back 50, 100 years of the ways that we've done things. All of that was kind of thrown up in the air last spring, and we had to start rewriting the rules from scratch. And schools, especially, I just got an email from my wife, who's a school teacher, about how things are going to be changing in that district over Thanksgiving. And one of the lines that caught my eye is, this is a fluid situation, and what we're telling you today might not be the same thing that we're telling you tomorrow. The best thing that people can do is follow the rules that are in place as best they can at the time that they're doing it, and keeping their eye on how those changes may occur, because they're going to continue to occur until we get fully on the other side of this, and that's going to be a while.
Unfortunately, that's the Cliff Note version of that answer, but it's going to have to do it because we're done with this particular segment. Nathan Bocks, attorney for Central Park Law in downtown Holland. Want to thank you very much for joining us on Ask the Attorney segment. I know we'll be probably chatting one more time before the end of the year, if not on the attorney side, with your other job as the mayor of the city of Holland. Nathan, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. It's always good to see you. And yes, I will be here in December as the mayor.
All right. Thank you very much. That's Mayor and Attorney Nathan Bocks on 99.7 and 1450 WHTC.